Okay, back on February 20th, 5 sealed bids for road materials were opened. After reviewing the 5 bids, I recommend that material sand and stone on Greenville Road in North Smithfield be awarded the bid. It's a 1-year contract.
No pun intended, right? The aggregate prices are best.
Yeah, I don't know what my folder is, I had my notes there. I think material had the lowest, there we go.
Yeah, from what I see, they do.
Maybe with the exception of 2 things that we really don't use often. So therefore, it's much more easier for us to do.
Mr. President, on the recommendation of Director of Public Works, Mr. Pendergast, I'd like to take a motion that we recommend we grant the bid to material sand and gravel for our road material bid.
Motion by Mr. Zelinski. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Alves. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Mr. Gaspar?
Yes.
Mr. Konski?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. I'm going to recommend that we skip over the next item because I told the presenters that would be on the agenda at approximately 8 o'clock. And they're not here yet, so we have a little bit more time. I'd like to skip over to discussion by council. This is item number 7, discussion by council vote or other action on approval of expense for stage 1 application to the Rhode Island Department of Education regarding reimbursement eligibility for the school's capital plan. This is listed as an authorization for signature, and what's in your packet is an invoice from RGB in the amount of $7,000. Yeah, because they're not there yet. So this is for the completion of the stage 1 application, which is required of the Rhode Island Department of Education to determine whether the town is eligible for reimbursement for the plan that has been approved by the town for investing in facilities at the schools. There was a deadline for this of March 31st. Otherwise, you carry it forward to the next year. And I was going to propose that this get paid from the contingency infrastructure account. That only has $1,950 left in it. There was a settlement that I believe ended up using some of that account. And RGB has agreed to accepting the $1,950 in this current fiscal year, with the balance due in the next fiscal year. So I'd be seeking approval for payment of $1,950 against this expense in order to follow through in the procedure of determining whether we're eligible for reimbursement by. And I would take any questions.
Mr. President, this work's already been done.
That's correct. They did it subject to approval of the council, so they understand full well the risk. But they also knew that if we didn't meet the March 31st deadline, that we'd be waiting a whole other year. So
We didn't know about the March 31st deadline? Or
I did not know about the March 31st deadline. It wasn't presented to me.
I'll make a motion to approve the 1950 for RGB based upon their good faith effort, since they go ahead and did the work for us anyways.
Motion by Mr. Yazbak. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Zelinski. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Levine.
Just, are you going to also vote on that $5,050, or are you going
point. We should probably approve the entire expense with the understanding that the balance of $5,050 will be payable in next fiscal year.
It would make it clearer by
Yeah,
whatever the council wants.
I tend to agree. I don't know, it's the council's pleasure.
We have to set the rate for the next fiscal year. I'm not particularly fond of spending next year's money. Give it to the budget board, they'll include it in their budget, and we'll approve it as required, or if there's questions, we won't approve it, but I think for now, we just need to approve it in the, that's the current amount.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion on the table, it's been seconded, we've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? No. Mr. Gaspar? Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Rowley?
Yes. The next item on the agenda is item number 8, new business, discussion by council vote or other action on lease agreement with North Smithfield Heritage Association. I would turn to Madam Administrator.
Well, actually, we'll be talking to our solicitor, who's going to just run down some of the things that transpired and why we're at this point. Basically, if I may, Jim, just the school department no longer wanted custody of that building. And the town had paid all the sewer assessments for years and everything anyway, so we decided we would take back custody, and in order to memorialize it, this is what the lease is about.
Mr. President, basically, this is a 5-year lease. It gives 90 days notice for either party to terminate the lease. It's $1 per year. It automatically renews if there's no termination. If you go to page 2, one of the things, what happened was I wrote the lease. It was much longer than this. They counteracted and wrote the lease back. I then made changes to the lease, and that's what's before you right now. So this is something that I did review and approve. One of the things is in section B on page 2, the town, I put in may assist by matching 1/2 of the cost, and the association will now seek matching grant funds. I didn't want to obligate the town to anything in regards to that. One of the other things is that I would point out to you is that the landlord shall use town employees for any required tree removal on the premises. Something to note, in that we're going to cover the landlord will include the building and grounds under its insurance umbrella. The rest of it's pretty standard. If you have any questions, let me know.
So, up until this point, do I understand correctly that the school department has been it's been in the care and custody of the school department, and they leased it to the Heritage Association?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Councilor Zalinski.
Solicitor Lombardi, do we have anything, some type of written understanding between the school committee, school department, school committee, and the town that this property is now going to be under the, yes, we do? Okay, thank you.
Who owns it according to the deed?
It's deeded to the town under the care and custody of the school department.
The town owns it. And there's nothing in the deed that would prevent us from taking back custody of the property and then leasing it out?
I don't know the answer to that.
Such as
You don't want to answer it, or you can't answer it?
I don't really. I didn't read the deed, so I can't.
Well, I think the deed needs to be reviewed. Because I always understood that there was a problem with that deed.
I don't even think we have.
It's a handwritten deed, that's what I've been
Oh,
told.
you're thinking of Kendall Dean. I
Yeah,
have
sure.
that.
Yeah, but same thing with this one.
No, this one we don't even have anything written.
Well, there has to be a deed somewhere. Debbie Todd has a million deeds over there.
I've never-
You know that one?
No, really, no,
wanna make sure that we own it before we enter into an agreement to rent it. I mean, we have to make sure that, I mean, that's just basic.
Well,
That's been a school, it was a school building, so it was the town's building with the custody of the school department. It was used as a school for years and years and years. It's just as if we were to take Kendall Dean and then,
No, I understand who's been using it. I would just wanna know who owns it, and the deed's gonna tell us who owns it. And if the solicitor can review the deed, and he feels comfortable that we can enter into this agreement, I think that's the proper way to go.
I would agree, and it goes back to that first question about do we have a written understanding that the school committee, school department is relinquishing control of that to the town?
that I do, yes.
You do have
I
it,
that,
okay.
right.
And Madam Administrator, was that a vote of the school committee? Is that how that was? Okay, thank you.
And don't get me wrong, I have no problem
Yeah,
leasing
no.
it to the Heritage Association, but you just don't want somebody to come back and say they have a claim on the property, because if it wasn't used for this, that, or the other purpose, now it's an issue.
Anyone understood? Never saw a deed, good question, never did, really, truly. There must be one somewhere, but it may not be in this town.
Even if the Indians gave it to somebody else, who gave it to somebody else, who eventually gave it to the town, we're gonna.
So do I understand that we're gonna not take any action on this evening until the deed has been researched?
All right, we'll do that, and we'll try to find it. It may take us a while to find that.
Is there any particular rush to get the lease?
Well,
sorted
they
out?
would just feel better. I mean, it's been kind of held in abeyance right now, you know.
First,
No one
the big-
really paying attention to it, and they're trying, they really have ownership for all intents and purposes. All the things within the building, are part of the Heritage Association. They just would feel better, I think, if they knew that they could continue to have that place to show their wares.
It's one of the best maintained buildings in town.
I wonder if we could
Yes, you saw it.
plan to put that on the either May 5th agenda? Is that,
Well, you can just wait for the solicitor to report back that he's seen it, and then put it on the next meeting.
okay. Okay, so we're gonna move off this topic.
Tell the Heritage people not to worry about it, it's legal stuff.
I actually skipped one that we could do before we get into the Branch Village presentation, and that is continuation of public hearing regarding Public Facilities Advisory Task Force, item 5 on the agenda. It's listed as both a discussion by council vote or other action on substantial acceptance of Public Facilities Advisory Task Force recommended facilities plan, and B, discussion by council vote or other action on resolution to General Assembly for bonding of same, for an authorization of signature. So when we had our last meeting, we reviewed the RGB proposal, and we discussed that the original proposal was for approximately $12 million to cover investments in this building, in the town hall, in the Andrews School, investments in the high school, and then we discussed the fact that we had a presentation by our fiscal advisor suggesting that we not extend our bonded indebtedness beyond this $12 million. And we knew that we wanted to do some roads. So we had a discussion about how we could scale back the facilities proposal by about $2.5 million in order to include roads. And that we've had discussions with the superintendent of schools, with the police chief about those two particular buildings, where we might be able to achieve some savings. And I'm confident that we're going to be able to do that. And I know that the police chief is confident, and the superintendent is also confident that we can do that. We've discussed a number of ways that we could do it, but what's before us this evening is still the presentation that we saw for the full $12 million. And I just thought it was important that we have, because there's been so many different iterations of this, that we at least enter this as Exhibit A, so that when we come back to it, we talk about how we may want to make some changes to it. We're all working off the same document. So This is still a public hearing, and if anybody would like to step forward and make any comments about the facilities plan as it was presented at the last meeting, we can entertain those comments. Are there any who would like to speak? Mr. Clifford?
Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road. I would just like to encourage the council to give new consideration to the idea of separating these into 3 separate issues, or at least 2 separate issues. First of all, on a personal level, I really think I'm capable of making a judgment for myself as to which item to vote for and support. When the state does a bond referendum for highway improvement, they don't lump it in with the URI nursing school program building. You have the discretion to pick and choose what you choose to support and what you don't support. Secondly, I don't think, I think the facilities committee did a great job in coming up with what needed to be done in those facilities, but I'm equally as concerned with the capital budget requests that are still sitting out there unfunded. You know, if you look at the capital budget requests that are in there, there's, I think that the last time I looked at the FY, at the capital budgets in total, you're probably looking at better than $6 million in capital improvements that people were looking to have done before 2019. And you're not going to be doing that by chipping away at $560,000 a year. And many of those items on those capital budget requests, particularly for the schools, are health and safety issues. Ventilation, air quality, those types of things. So I wish that we could step back a minute and, maybe if you put this on as 3 separate items, then somebody can have the time to actually review the fiscal numbers here and the total impact and figure out how are we going to accommodate everybody's needs, supporting this bond issue, taking care of the capital over the next 5-year period. Maybe we need to look at what's in the bond issue that's in there and see if there are things in there that could be removed and some of the health and safety items that are in the capital plan put in lieu of new. I know for one of the things that I saw in the presentation was the storage at Hallowell. I don't think the storage at Hallowell is near as important as the air quality in the schools. And if we have to put $300,000 into ventilation issues in one of the buildings, I think that should take priority over this. And I worry that if we don't take care of those things in this bond issue, since we did hear from the financial advisor for the town, and he did seem to suggest that we were maxing out at the level of bond indebtedness that we are, and since we are already currently, paying a good number of bonds with about $5.5 million every year from our budget supporting those bond payments, I just think somebody needs to sit back and look at the whole picture. Yes, it's very nice to say this is what needs to be done and this is going to cost $12.5 million, but I think you also need to look at all the revenue projections and all of the other needs of the town in form of capital to make sure that we're going to be able to cover everything. Because just looking at it, quickly from a distance, I get very nervous looking at these numbers. I don't know how people think this is all going to, come into play. And I think the tendency is, if we're getting a bond issue, okay, that's free money, or we don't have to worry about it because it's going to be in installments. But just to show you the impact that it has, this year the cap on the levy is $30,893,520. By the time you take out the abatements and then the collection rate from that, the actual amount of money, and I went over this with Brenda again today, we've been working on it for a couple of weeks, but just trying to refine it. The actual money that we can increase the budget by this year is only $1,166,877. Out of that, the new capital lease payments that you approved last year when you approved the $560,000 capital budget is $118,114, and then the new legal settlement is $95,000. So we're left with a net increase to distribute to the town, the school, and everybody else of about $953,000. And when I said earlier, I don't know how other towns are coming up with the funding for the capital programs, I meant that. I think that's something that needs to be looked at. I don't think they're chipping away by, doing these capital lease payment plans. I think they're floating substantial bonds for capital and then probably paying it, or they're dedicating some source of revenue to it. But until we really look at how are they doing it and how should this be structured, and are we going to take care of all that capital budget requests that are still sitting there that are health and safety, I'm really nervous. So, I don't expect you're going to be able to do that tonight, but at least if you separated the three issues and the interim period over the next couple of months, I think you need to get together a little team to just look at the revenue projections. Are they accurate? And factor in the capital budget and see how that's going to be accommodated. If in 3 months from now we figure out that we're not going to be able to swing everything that's on our plate right now, and we're not going to be able to take on everything, then at least people will know the degree of indebtedness that they want to
I hear your concern, Mr. Clifford, and I've actually spoken with the school superintendent about the issue of their longer-term capital needs, things, as you pointed out, health and safety, the air circulation systems, and so forth, and we are working in collaboration with this as a base document to say, what are the things that may be in here on the school side? We talked, for example, one example, renovating 6 science labs. They're now looking at saying, maybe we could take another look at that and only renovate 4 or 3, because it's a very expensive proposition, and then be able to flex some of the savings into those longer-term capital needs that are health and safety, which is why I want to get this document on the record tonight so that we can work off of this. And then ultimately we'll come back with the school committee's recommendation for how to work with the 9.5 total on the facility side to achieve their highest priorities. So this could change, but the budget amount wouldn't change.
Well, I'm still also concerned about the road repaving. Again, just looking at what we've been putting into the infrastructure of road repaving and reading that report in a little more detail, I think we're going to find out that that's more than $2.3 million. Yeah, maybe for the 30 roads that he showed you there, but I think that's got a big, high ceiling in it, much a larger number than 2.3. And secondly, when I look at the projections for the revenue that were done by the tax assessor to cover the bond indebtedness, I mean, I didn't look at it in detail, and she hasn't been here to answer any questions. She's been out sick for quite some extended time now. But when I look at it, little things jump out at you. Like she's projecting 35 single-family homes coming online in 2015. Well, they've issued like 1 building permit this year so far, and we had 8 houses come online last year. So why are we projecting for 35 new single-family homes, with each of those homes bringing in 2 cars and vehicles?
If I can interrupt you, I don't disagree with that. I'd like to have a small task group come together to look at the projections and to verify the projections. That's not what we're here to do this evening. I understand that it relates to it, but I also don't want to get too hung up on it.
Well, what I'm saying is you're going to pass a resolution shortly to put this on the agenda and in the fall on the ballot as a question.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lump them together as one, and then we find out later, in a month or 2 or 3 months, that we don't have the revenue coming in that's going to be able to support that, then the whole thing's going to go down. But if we can, say, well, we have enough to fund this, and we have enough to cover this safely, then you can salvage it. But if the whole thing goes down, and we don't do roads this year, what are we going to have, a special election next year to put that ballot on the question? Because it's an off year. So I just wish you'd really, truly consider separating the issues, at least into pushing the roads aside and separately, and taking a deep breath, stepping back and looking at the whole picture of the town, rather than just, okay, the facility, this bond will cover this. I think there's more needs to the town than what's in that facilities report. That's a great document to look at what needs to be done to those properties, but I think there's other issues beyond those properties.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this issue?
We're going to have that discussion Thursday night in front of the planning board, so I agree on some of the issues that Mr. Clifford has raised. After 9 years in Lincoln, I know there's no market for selling bonding of deferred maintenance, and you have to make a distinction between what's deferred maintenance and what's new technology. New windows are new technology, science labs are new technology. People don't like being asked to bond for deferred maintenance. So we'll have the discussion Thursday night, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Moved by Councilor Alves. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Zawinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And I would entertain a motion to accept in substantial form the Public Facilities Advisory Task Force recommended facilities plan that's in our packets. Moved by Councilor Yazbak. Is there a second? Dated April, actually, they've got a,
What's the most current date?
Yeah, there's a date in here, it's April 3rd, dated April 3rd, 2014. Second by Councilor Zawinski.
Yes.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yeska?
Yes.
Mrs. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes, motion carries. And then we have the issue of the resolution, which goes to the General Assembly seeking permission to put a question on the ballot in November, a referendum for bond, in the total amount of $12 million, of which 2.5 is for road rehabilitation and 9.5 is for the facilities plan. This is the approach that we voted on at the last meeting. This is just a resolution for that, and I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign it.
Mr. President,
Mr. Zawinski.
the last meeting I was in the minority, voted two. I wanted to separate the two issues, the road as well as the infrastructure, keep them separate. That being said, I will make the motion to approve this resolution.
Motion by Mr. Zawinski. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Yazbek. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, and ask for a roll call vote.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Yeska?
Yes.
Mrs. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Flaherty?
Yes. Motion carries. And that brings us to 7:59. I think I told Mr. Gibbs I thought we'd have him on by 8 o'clock. That's not too bad. So at this time, we will move on to item number 6, presentation regarding Branch Village redevelopment plan by the redevelopment agency and the Economic Development Committee. This is listed as a discussion by council, vote, or other action.